Here's an example from the humanities side. You're gonna discuss facial expressions and body language of the characters in the story and ask students what feelings they think is being expressed prior to reading each page. So it starts off with a whole class lesson. You'll brainstorm a list of feelings from the story and have students pantomime particular feelings. And then use the scenario cards to have volunteers come up and act out different actions, and classmates will guess the feeling. Explain to the students that we will be creating paper plate feeling masks and model for the students how to make paper plate feeling masks. So start off as a whole group. There will be some teacher modeling, and then it will go into small group independent work. So again, very clear, very short, step by step. So if somebody else was to come in to see what you were doing or to cover your class, they would be able to carry out these plans. Now, another part of your lesson plan is differentiation, because not all learners learn the same. So your whole class activities and learning centers should have materials to address the variety of learners. You have your Tier 1 and your Tier 2 and your more intensive group, which is your Tier 3. And there should be evidence of multimodality approach to instruction. Now, I'm going to touch upon differentiation very briefly now, but we'll have another session which will go more in depth on differentiation. I'm going to show you some examples of ways teachers have differentiated within their classroom or within their lesson plans. For example, one way to show your differentiation is students will be given graph paper and place value blocks to help visualize multiplication strategies based on their individual needs during the unit. That teacher is touching upon students who are visual learners as well as students who need to use manipulatives to understand place value. Another example, for the charts or organizers, teacher will provide partially completed sections of the activity for ELL students and special education students depending on the need. So this teacher is providing graphic organizers and charts and completing part of it for students who might be of English language learners and also to accommodate special education students. Another example again is providing pictograms or videos and non-linguistic representations to students prior to the lesson to acquaint them with new vocabulary and build connections to real-life examples. Or using an exit slip or a quick check to see to continue to monitor students who need accommodations. Those are all examples of how to differentiate. From the humanities side, students will have, now differentiation doesn't necessarily mean tailoring your instruction to students who need accommodations because they're special ed. It could also be taken to the extent of our gifted and talented students as well. So here's a higher level activity for students students who are high learners. Students will have an opportunity to extend their learning of traditional tales by creating their own, including the 3 elements of traditional tales, ending, teaching a lesson, and family life or intro to their story. So they're extending a story or creating their own traditional tale story. So this is taking whatever they're doing in class to the next level. Lessons, as I stated earlier, should lead up to the social justice project. So all your lessons, whatever skills and strategies you're teaching, students should be able to apply them to completing their social justice project. So the social justice and learner expectation themes for the quint should be integrated throughout your activities. Your activities should not just be in isolation, but they should have some connection to whatever learner expectation or social justice question students are answering. And the activity should show progress towards an interdisciplinary project. Here's an example of one. In this quint 3, our learner expectation is empathetic citizen. So for our center activity, the teacher had students reading an article on young migrant workers about child laborers on a farm. Now they were learning about child labor and relating it to being an empathetic citizen. And what they had to do is they had to respond, after reading the article, they had to respond to the open-ended question about whether they would or would not want to be a child laborer, using a T-chart graphic organizer to identify reasons why they would or would not want to be a child laborer. So in this case, they have to read the articles And then think about, would I want to be a child laborer based on what I've read in the article? And again, they're relating it to being an empathetic citizen. Great center activity that you can do to relate to the learner expectation. And so the differentiation must also be embedded in your center. So they had to read the article and respond to the questions. That's the must do that everyone must do. And also their can do was to use their response and write a letter to the president about what needs to be done about child labor in the United States and also around the world. And this teacher said that she'd provide sentence starters for the lower ability students. So even though it's less activity to a higher extent, students of a lower ability can take that, can also complete it, and they'll get sentence starters to help them complete that assignment. So again, it's connected to the learner expectation. It gives a brief summary of what the activity will be in that particular center. And there's also the differentiation, what things students must do and what things they can choose to do. As we spoke about earlier with the objective and within your lessons, there must be some kind of assessment to see if students have mastered your goals, this goal that you intend for them to learn. So your assessments in your lesson plan should identify means by which a teacher regularly assesses each individual lesson objective and closes with a creative but not overused activity. For example, an exit slip or the 3-2-1, 3 things that I learned, 2 questions that, 2 new things that I learned, and 1 question I have. Here's some examples of how teachers have assessed their students. Students will be assessed informally by the teacher with their fraction bar pages during independent work and center work. And a pre-test on fractions will be given during centers to see the background knowledge that each child has and to show their strengths and weaknesses. And then an inquiry lab will be given to test their knowledge of the scientific method and data collecting skills. So in this case, the teacher is assessing in many different ways. She's informally assessing using fraction bar pages during independent work. She's given a pre-test during the centers to test their prior knowledge, and then she's also going to do an inquiry lab to test their knowledge of the scientific method. This is assessments on different skills, but it's showing ongoing assessment to see if they've mastered what she intends for them to learn. Another assessment is that students will be assessed based on their ability to identify and recognize story-critical character settings and objects and use adjectives to describe their objects, characters, and settings in their writing. So this is just an extension as to you look at your objective and you figure out what is it you want them to do, how is it you want them to show that they have mastered it. So it's not really a separate component, but it's just to have you thinking, what are the students going to do in order to show that they've mastered what I want them to learn? And finally, our lesson plan format, in terms of how the lesson plan should be organized and formatted. You want to identify yourself by writing the teacher, identify what subject you teach, either humanities or math science, the week, the dates for the lesson, your quint. Provide the unit title. Now your unit title is based on the title from your syllabus. Each syllabus has a title. So what is the title? So it gives me reference as to what is it you're focusing on. What's the theme? Your social justice strand, which is right from the matrix, which we mentioned before. And the essential questions are the essential questions you're creating for your syllabus based on whatever your theme for your quint is going to be, or the theme on your syllabus. The learner expectation is again right from the matrix, and we have one each quint. Then you want to go into the topic or title of the lesson. Now when you list that, you're going to include the objective. So what is it students will be able to do? How is that going to be evident? What is the evidence to show that they've learned it? And then you're going to align it with the Common Core standard, Common Core State Standard. So in parentheses, you just write the Common Core State Standard. Your activity, which is a summary, which I've listed before, of what the students will do. It's a short summary of what they will do in that time period. How are you going to differentiate? Now we use something here called a must-do and a can-do. A must-do is everything that students need to do. It's something that all students need to do. A can-do provides a choice for students to choose from. So it takes the activity to the next level. It's not an additional assignment, but it's an extension of the assignment. And your differentiation within your lessons need to make sure that it addresses accommodations for the differentiated learning of individual students. Your assessment, what is it that you're going to assess students on? Or what is it that you're using to assess students? And then finally, you'll list out all your centers that you're going to have.